Alright, today in our video we're going to be explaining how energy flows through an ecosystem and also how food chains and food webs are related. You'll learn all about how the food that is produced and consumed fuels all the animals in the ecosystem. So enjoy.
Primary producers and consumers are linked throughout the ecosystem. In all ecosystems, the energy always flows in similar ways. The energy always flows from the producers to the consumers, the plants often being the producer.
First proposed by the English zoologist Charles Elton in 1927, food chains and food webs describe the successive transfer of energy from plants to animals that eat them, and to the animals that eat those animals, and so on. A food chain is a model for this process which assumes that the transfer of energy within the community is relatively simple.
By definition, a food chain is a series of steps in which organisms transfer energy by eating and being eaten. A simple food chain only shows organisms as having one predator and one prey. For instance, a food chain might show a white-tailed deer as having one prey like plants, and with the only predator being a bobcat.
A food web is a network of interactions. In a food web, you might notice that there is more than one food chain that are included in the food web. These food chains are interconnected through interactions among the different animals. A food web also shows that an organism has more than one predator and prey.
Food chain, there are animals that have a different eating behavior, which in effect makes them rank differently within the food web and or chain.
To start off, the sun is the basis of all life forms. It is what provides the energy that is used by all organisms. Note that there are some organisms that do not need the sun's energy, which live deep in the bottom of the ocean, and they get their energy from hydrothermal vents deep within the ocean.
On the bottom level of the food chain would be the producers, also known as autotrophs. These autotrophs get their energy from the sun and use it to make their own food through a process that is called photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, the plants use the energy to make glucose, which is their form of food and energy. The environment's a body of water. The producers are phytoplankton.
Next in line are the consumers, which are animals that eat other organisms to get food and energy, such as this dog.
Herbivores are animals that consume plants in order to survive. For example, white-tailed deer eats plants, leaves, seeds, and fruits to get the energy it needs to live.
Another form of a consumer would be a carnivore. Carnivores are animals that get their energy from eating other animals. For example, a bobcat will be the predator of a white-tailed deer and will consume it for energy to live.
Birds are animals that eat plants and other animals to get their energy that they need to survive. An example of this is the dog, where the dogs eat grass and steak.
Decomposers are organisms that break down other organisms into detritus. Detritus is consumed by detrivores. Some examples of decomposers are bacteria and fungi. Some examples of detrivores are grass, shrimp, worms, and crayfish.
Parasites are animals that live off of other animals by harming them. For instance, a leech will suck the blood from a human or other animal and will live off the animal while harming it. Now, in this field, there are a lot of ticks that will do the same.
And finally, there are scavengers. Scavengers are animals that feed off of other animals' dead carcasses. For example, you might say a vulture would be a scavenger. Now normally, you'll see plenty flying around up here. Since food webs are often complex, it is often hard for even the smartest of scientists to understand and predict how environments may affect an ecosystem and the food web that it is related to. For example, an oil spill could totally affect a food web and cause imbalance. This in return could cause some animals that survive off of other animals to become endangered or even die out. This might happen if there is an oil spill which wipes out the population of trees. The lack of trees and other plants could cause the animals which prey on the trees to become endangered. Once these animals become endangered, the animals which are one step higher will suffer as well.
Something else that we would like to talk about is an ecological pyramid. An ecological pyramid shows relative amount of energy or matter combined with each level of trophic level. Trophic level is a step in a food chain or food pyramid. There are three different types of ecological pyramids. There are pyramids of energy, pyramids of biomass, and pyramids of numbers.
An ecological pyramid of biomass shows the relationship between biomass and trophic level by quantifying the amount of biomass present at each trophic level of an ecological community at a particular moment in time. It is a graphic representation of biomass, the total amount of living or organic matter in a ecosystem present in unit area in different trophic levels.
A pyramid of numbers is a graphical representation of the numbers of individuals in each population in a food chain. Often it is drawn from the autotrophic level up. A pyramid of numbers can be used to examine how the population of certain species affects another. Often the autotrophic level in a pyramid of numbers is much larger than at any of the other trophic levels, and the number decreases upon ascending the pyramid. There are exceptions, however. For example, in a tree community, a single tree can support many different populations of larger numbers.
A pyramid of energy flow is helpful in examining how energy is distributed within a food chain. Such a pyramid is set up by approximating the amount of energy absorbed at each level, the amount of energy that is consumed by a higher trophic level, and the amount of energy that is lost to heat and death. In most communities, only 10 to 15% of the energy absorbed by a trophic level is passed on to the next.
As you can see, this is an example of a food web. At the bottom you have your producers, which are the terrestrial and salt marsh plants, and also the aquatic plants and algae. On your second level you have your primary consumers, which are herbivores, and those include the insects, the small fish, and snails. On the third level you have secondary consumers, which is the rat, a frog, and a big fish. The third level, which is the second to the last, is the tertiary consumers, which are the snake, the crane, the duck, and the sparrow. And on your final level, you have your hawk, which is your quaternary consumer. From the producers to the primary consumers, only 10% of the energy is transferred, and the other 90% is radiated off as heat. And same for between each level, 90% of all the heat, or 90% of all the energy is radiated off as heat, and 10% is consumed. Alright, I hope you learned a lot about the ecosystems and how the energy flows through them today. We hope you enjoyed the video and learned a lot. Feel free to ask any questions after the video. Thank you.